You are live. Welcome to Black USA, the voice of our people. And I'm Marsha Reeves, and I am sitting in for Donnie Glover. And with us is Michael Eugene Johnson. He is the voice of Baltimore, and he is always stirring the pot. And so we're going to talk about what's in that pot today. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, and thank you and Donnie Glover for the Emmy-nominated opportunity to contribute to the show. It is a good day today on Tuesday. The snipers miss me, so seems like I'll survive another day at this point. And thank you, Mark, for all of your contribution that you give, not only in broadcasting, but all of the contribution that you give into our community. And so I appreciate having this opportunity.
Oh, Michael, thank you so much. I think like spirits, right? And so, it's not only what you see, but it's the reflection of what you do. And that's why you were always in my circle because you see. And we need more people to be able to see and to say and to speak. And this is real critical at this point in our lives, in our community, but also in this nation. I want to start off with talking about the fact that you have something special about to occur. And I thought that this might I didn't want us to get too far down the road, but I wanted you to just share with us so people can mark their calendars about a special event that you have coming up.
Well, I mean, I am blessed to have good friends, professional friends like yourself and other friends, and CW, which is WNUV Channel 54, which runs all over the state of Maryland, was looking for an opportunity to bring a kind of a news panel talk show into their station, and I was selected. I'm the one. My MEJ Broadcast Media was contacted, and with the executive producer of India Artists and other producers, Edna Beale, and I mean, I could go on and on, Stephen Sidnor. All of us had put together a show called Straight No Chaser, which will come out the end. The slogan is, if it's the last Sunday, if it's the last Sunday, it must be straight, no chaser. And this will be a show, a panel show with newsmakers, with politicians, with conversations that's going to, I think, is going to add a little different type of flavor in Baltimore City. We'll be on during the news cycle. We're going to be on at 11 a.m. on Sundays to 12 noon, right
I
up against
love it.
the all of the news programs, and we will bring current and very controversy shows here. Our first show starts actually where we have four leaders in the Black church will be at our first show, which the show is called The Black Church. Is it still important in the Black community? But we have a lot of shows that are coming up. We're really, really excited. I would appreciate if everybody would maybe preset their dial for June the 25th at 11 a.m. on NUV 54 or CW Baltimore. We'll be across the entire state of Maryland. This is not just a Baltimore City channel. This channel goes all the way literally into Virginia. So we will be able to go directly after what we feel are not just local conversations, but state conversations as well as national conversations. And
That's
so we're
huge.
really excited. It's called Straight No Chaser.
And that's one of my favorite sayings. So I will be looking forward to this show. I can't
Well, we
wait.
we 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 like the way it's going. We are doing all of the due diligence. It's a studio thing. It's different when it's podcasts, as we know, because we can stare at the computer. But here and now, I'm managing. I'm hosting. I'm going to be managing four people at the most time. But we also have a show coming into the cycle that's going to be a one-on-one interview with someone that people haven't heard from in a long time. Somebody might have been controversy in Baltimore or controversy in the nation. And these are shows that will be taped on 2 days or 3 days before the broadcast, so we can keep it as current as we can. So, Straight No Chaser, pretty much most people know me. I'm pretty much like that. I mean, I'm not going to yell and scream and make, you know, all the time jokes. I make some jokes, but I think that at the end of the day, when folks know that I am keyed in on something, it's something I want to, talk about. And I think that our subject matter today is something that everyone knows that I've been keyed on for many, many years.
Well, I wish you the best. And I think that the title, Straight No Chaser, is so appropriate for you.
Well, thank you.
It's
Thank you.
absolutely
Got me
appropriate.
in trouble a few times, but I'm okay.
Yeah, that's all right. You know how to stand. You know how to stand the cold. So you just keep doing what you're doing.
I
We need
appreciate it.
you doing just what you're doing. I'm really grateful and excited for you.
Thank you very
So
much.
keep us posted,
I
right? And
certainly
don't
will.
forget, we've got a newsletter. So we'll
Oh,
work.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Want the best newsletter, not just the newsletter.
Thank you so much. So we have a lot of things going on, and this whole business with the superintendent of schools in the Baltimore City school system breaks my heart. I cannot, for the life of me, understand why in 2023 we're still having a conversation about our children being ignored, their ability to learn, to grow, and prepare for adulthood is critical. And part of that growth means that they have to be educated, they have to learn, they have to be able to think, they have to be able to understand, they have to be ready for the world, they have to be ready, and they're not ready. The test scores are deplorable. What is going on with the Baltimore City school system?
We as a community, including and led by the Baltimore school system, has abandoning our children. We
Mhm.
have made a decision that educating some is okay, but educating the masses is not necessary. And unfortunately, as a community, as a outreach of that community, as a city council person, state delegate, state senator, congressman, United States senator, governor, we've decided that it's not that important, because if it was as important as you and I and like-minded people know how important it was, we would have a Marshall Plan, a critical plan in place in order to move the needle where it used to be. And when I say what it used to be is this: when you made the statement in reference to here we are again, we're still talking. Well, these conversations really only started 20, 25 years ago. Baltimore City at one time led the nation in some of the best schools in the country. People would come from around the country to go to Frederick Douglass High School and Paul Laurence Dunbar High School in the 40s and the 50s, because they knew that these were the best Black schools in the country at the time. And so we get to a place now where we get rather relaxed by the fact that we're miseducating. And the way that we're miseducating them, the students, is that we're not educating the students, but we're
Mhm.
also not educating the community.
Mm.
Uh, I hate when I always have to go back and rely back into the days when my hair was darker and a couple of pounds less. But at
Mhm.
that time, you had adult education that would be in the same building that the earlier part of the day, children were being educated. So there was
Mhm.
a continuing of educating our community. Now, what you have is you have leadership who don't even call themselves superintendent. And the reason they can't call themselves superintendent, because you had to have so many years teaching in the classroom.
Mm.
The word CEO is just what it is. She's a chief executive officer. She's not a superintendent of educating our children. And in
Mm.
Baltimore City, historically, we at one time had two superintendents, one for the black,
Really?
yes, one for the black children and one for the white children. Back in the day, way back before me, but back in the day. But what happened was the black children's scores and things were higher than white students. Now, of course, Brown versus Board of Education, we suggested we educated the schools. That's a false, because if you look at the schools right now, they're just as segregated as they were then.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very fortunate to go to a school that was built, the first school in Baltimore City that was built following Brown versus Board of Education, which was Northwestern at the time, at the
Okay.
far corner of Baltimore City. So to bring it back where the ghost can get it, is that what we have right now is we have a system that has funding that I could never imagine they would have. I mean, lots and lots and
Stupid money.
money. Stupid money. I love that. Stupid money. When we're at a place where we have stupid money, but we're not educating our children.
But we could pay her $385,000 a year.
When we
I
also are
just
paying 1,000 people in the system over $125,000 a year. So you got 1,000 people in the system making over that. And what we've given her, and Sandalisa is a bright young lady. She went to one of the top 4 universities in the country, Brown University, Ivy League, all of whatever that contributes to. For me, I think Morgan is one of the top 4. But here she comes, and she came with Alonzo originally,
mm-hmm.
who literally dismantled all of the principals in the
Right.
school. So she's there, but she's the leader. But the board is the governing body. The board in the school system governs what happens in the system. She leads it, but they govern it. So what happened was in Baltimore City was politics and black children
Mm.
happened more at a level than it's ever been. So now you have the mayor appointing
Mm.
9 of the I may be one off 9 of the current school board members, and then we have 2 elected, which is a joke. And I ran for the elected position and wasn't successful, but it was a joke because you didn't deduct 2 people that were appointed. You just added 2 more people on. So the mayor still has the control of the board. And when people say, well, it's the board running everything, the reason that they didn't close the all-male school wasn't because of the school board. It was because the mayor made the phone call. But what we've done is we now have our children for 40 hours a week. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And
That's a
yet,
full day.
yeah, that's a full day. And that's a work day for
Right.
those of us that work. Well, for
Right.
those of us that work, we know it takes more than 40 hours, but
Mm-hmm.
we're saying from the legal sense of the word. But what we're doing, we're miseducating our children because we're not bringing the system up to the 21st century. Case in point, Mervo gets $77 million a year.
Why?
Year.
Why?
Because they are a trade school, which they say they need this money, and they get it. Okay. They are working on cars at Mervo that are gas-fired engines that's been around since the 20s. You put gas in the car, it drives off. And Bethesda, Maryland, they're working on
What?
electric cars,
Exactly.
but we're working
Right.
on gas-fired cars. I mean, the transition of our trade schools into the 21st century. Oh, well, we have STEM, this and that. This. Well, if STEM is just getting you how to get on your phone and get on your computer and work
That's
on
not going.
TikTok, that's one thing. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're not teaching STEM at the level of our the gentleman that has the engineers, uh,
Tyrone Taborn.
Tyrone is working at that level. Because see, for me, if the Baltimore public school system were serious in STEM, then they would ask Tyrone
what
Could
to
he
do,
come in there and run it?
or set it up so somebody
Well,
else
set
could
it up.
run it who
Absolutely.
knows. He knows a
Absolutely.
million people with Black Engineer of the Year that's 30 something years old, and the Women of Color STEM conference is 27 years old, and you have the baddest Black people in the world in science, technology, engineering, and math, and every major corporation in the world, the top 1,000 corporations in the world, all attend the Black Engineer of the Year and or the Women of Color STEM conferences. And it is disrespectful. And he's sitting right there on Pratt
Mhm.
Street,
Right.
been there for over 30 years,
That's right.
and the school system has yet to ask him a question.
And this is why when I say how the community itself, let's look at the fact of this. 98% of the students that attend Baltimore City Public Schools are African American.
Right.
78% of your teachers are white women.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something?
Might be some nice white women, but I know that
Isn't that something?
77% of white women are teaching our children. Now, let's
Isn't that
also look
something?
at this. Here we are in Baltimore City. We have the great Morgan University, the
Mhm.
great Coppins, the great University of Baltimore, the great University of Maryland, the great Loyola, I can never say that word properly, Notre Dame, and the great John Hopkins
Mhm.
in the borders of a
Right.
system, school
Right.
system, that
Right.
if you were to have, and I've said this to many politicians, even though it goes on deaf ear, if you were to convene a study group, the
Mm.
study group should be two groups of people. The presidents of the university, who would say, this is what the curriculum needs to be in order for your children to get in my school. And the second group of people should be business owners who say, this is the curriculum your students need to be in so that they can come out and work. Or even a third group, the military. But what we've done is we've gotten people out of the classrooms, out of friendship, who are running the school system and are miseducating our children. Now, and let me make this clear. Parents have a role too. Okay. But if you have miseducated two generations before, and now you're asking the same generation of people who you've miseducated to come and participate in a program or come and participate. Oh, well, it's your children, this, that. Yeah, but we got some mom and dads that can't read,
Right.
can't figure it out. They've ended up, and I mean, and when we go back, and I hadn't finished my point, when we go back to a school like Maryville, there used to be in the public school system where you could go to Douglas, Emerson, Eastern, and a lot of schools, women in particular, who would go to these schools and take up beautician work. And they could leave the school,
All right. It's a
high school,
skill.
in the 12th grade, but you could leave in the 12th grade and go and take the test.
Mhm.
You can't do that anymore. What they did is they took the certification of beautician work out of the schools. And now you have to go to a hair school, pay money, and go to a hair school to get the rest of the credits that you need in order to take the test. And that happened during the Martin O'Malley administration when the commissioners of cosmetology was replaced from barbers and barbershops, barbers and beauty salon people to the schools who are now running the cosmetology institutions here in the state of Maryland.
Right.
So I guess that my problem is that who's listening? Because if
Nobody.
there's a strong correlation, there is a definite correlation between
Nobody
crime.
who has decision making capability. Nobody.
No, and there's a
Because we would
direct
not be in this
correlation.
situation.
Absolutely, and there's a direct correlation between crime and miseducation.
Well, because look at the kids. We sit and talk about the squeegee kids. The squeegee kids should be in school somewhere.
Well,
They're all
I
young.
would have liked that had their union though. They negotiated with the city government for 2 years. I mean, if we're sitting here and let me make this clear, if I was that age, I probably would have been doing the same thing. I would have been out there washing cars, doing whatever.
Handling your business because most
But
of those
there is a
children.
reason
Hmm.
that children are not in school, and we find these shootings, these murders and stuff that happens right around the school, and your superintendent says, oh, well, it didn't happen in the building. Well, the
But
reason that the young men at Emerson left the school because the cafeteria food tastes like cardboard, so they went across the street. If you know they like fried chicken, put fried chicken in the school. If the people at Mervo, I mean at the other schools were leaving the schools, that's because they're not keeping them in the building. I used to stay in the schools to maybe 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Why? Because it might have been drama, it might have been
right.
sports, it might have been all of the things that attracted. But when you go past that parking lot, especially if any high school, around 3:30 or 4 o'clock, the place is empty. It's gone.
So here, I just have the bottom line is that this woman has a job description. She has goals and objectives, and she's not reaching them. She's not meeting the expectation of her contract. You have every major college within walking distance
Yes.
of this superintendent's office.
Hmm.
You have a former mayor who's a president of a college that's right downtown,
Right
less
there.
than less than 20 blocks. I can walk it. And you don't have Kurt Schmoke sitting there talking to you about what you have. And we have this young man as mayor of this city who is totally irresponsible if these children are not reaching their goals and objectives, if they are not able to reach the test scores that are nationally expected to reach, why are these people still employed?
Because the community itself, the people who are listening to us, the people who are sending their children to school, have been blindsided by the total lack of professionalism within the system. There is a way to teach. And I'm very fortunate. I was an instructor in the Baltimore public school system. And one of the things I've always recognized is that from the pre-K to the fourth grade, it should be nothing but reading, English, reading, and math. That's it. I
Reading,
mean,
writing, arithmetic.
you have a
That's right.
little, yeah, you have a little,
That's right.
little recreation outside. But the old writing, reading, and arithmetic, the all three R's
Hmm.
that we used to joke
Hmm.
about. And
Hmm.
you do that for 4 straight years.
Period.
Period. Nothing else.
It's not that complex. It's not
It's not.
complex.
It's not that heavy
It's
as we say.
bottom line.
It's and so with that, we take that, but we at the same time, we've got to respect the fact that the community needs to be educated at the same time. Who is it that makes a decision that a $70 million building that was built off of taxpayers' money closes at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Who has that right? And yet principals across this whole city are shutting down their schools at
So they don't
3:30,
do
4 o'clock.
they don't have to deal with any administrative. They feel that's enough. They've
That's
done
enough.
what they're supposed to
At
do.
3:30, 4 o'clock,
The
they're
end.
gone. They're gone. And so I know that our children are very, very smart. No child is born not smart.
Mm.
Every child is smart. But if you don't work that child, if you don't work that mentality of that child, make sure that child is reading. I don't care. I remember when my daughter, who's an educator now, when I first gave her first book, she read it upside downwards. She's sitting there acting like she read book just upside downwards. But then she recognized that there was a book.
Mhm.
And yet we've now used these electronic devices. And let me make this clear too. There are so many things going up against educating a child. We have
Yes.
these phones, we have these computers, we have these nasty videos that are easy accessible. We have these gang-written songs that come out. And no, it's not, oh, Miss Johnson, you acting like an old man. No, I'm just saying that they got a lot going on. The three
Mm.
popular shows on TV are all about drug dealers.
Right. Well, because
That's
they've elevated them.
well, they've elevated them because you would rather elevate that than elevate who was Frederick Douglass, to
Hmm.
elevate who was Marcus Garvey, to elevate who was Ida Peters. I mean, you elevate who you want, but again, if the school is serious about educating our children, it is not uh, chess; it's checkers.
Right.
It's this is what we are asking for. This is what we're expecting. But we've got to bring all of the groups in. You got to bring the social workers in. You got to bring the mental health people in. But you can't, in case in point with the mental health. During Freddie Gray's incident, I was still in the system. We went down to Madonna and got our kids out of
Hmm.
Madonna. We went from
Okay.
Northwestern. I was teaching up there and got our kids out of there. But the next day, the school system sends three psychiatrists or three mental folks, whatever they call them,
Yeah.
to Northwestern in order to talk to our kids. Three white women.
About what?
Well, they found out the kids were uneven because of the riots and the things that was going on following Freddie Gray. Two
Okay.
Orthodox Jewish women and one Jewish woman in front of a school that's 99.9% African American. And the principal said, could you take them and go meet with the children? And I just refused. And I made the phone calls and got some black mental health folks to come up there afterwards. But this is the logic that a lot of these principals go by. So what has to happen is this. One, we need to have the biggest rally that you've ever seen, which is what we're trying to plan for April the 4th, which is also the 55th anniversary of the assassination of the Prince
That
of
March.
Peace, Dr. Martin
Hmm.
Luther King.
Hmm.
And we've got to send that message. One, that we want Sandalisa to step down.
Yes.
And not only her, but all of her minions
Yes.
that are around her.
Yes.
Two, we want an investigation about the mishandling of not just the funds, but the mishandling of the educational resources for our children,
The whole system.
the whole system.
That's
And then
right.
in
The
the
whole system.
meantime, we would like to put in place a committee of people that would come out of the universities, that would come out of the business community, the
Correct.
STEM community, to come
Correct.
in and to run our programs.
Correct.
Number one school, we have, people use this new line is the new political line they use now. The new line is, well, um, this is happening all over the country.
No,
That's
it's
the
not.
new line. In order they deflecting what's
No,
happening
it's
in your
not.
neighborhood.
No, it's not.
Baltimore City is the out of 24 municipalities in the state of Maryland, we're 24.
Right. Because you don't,
23,
there's no leadership.
yeah, but
There's no leadership.
23 is Prince George's County, the richest black county in the country.
But they got
So
black
there's a
children.
coalition between why black children aren't learning or
Hmm.
the scores aren't showing on that
Hmm.
level. But at the same time, we should be rewarding all of the children who are doing the best they can based on the circumstances in which they come and making sure that when they're ready to go to college or go to a
They're
job,
prepared.
whatever it is, not only are they prepared, we need to reward them. See,
Hmm.
there's no feeling of reward. I graduated in a class that had 700 and something children. The class
Wow.
before me graduated with 1,100 kids. The class before them graduated almost 1,200. And what it was is there was that stepping stone. You wanted to graduate. You wanted to participate. But
Hmm.
what we've done is we made school a thing.
Right.
It's a
Well,
thing.
my daughter, well, she went to school in Bethesda,
Mhm.
her
Great
elementary,
system.
the grounding. And then she moved to Baltimore. And what she said was, my son will be educated, and he is homeschooled.
Mm,
And the program that he uses is called a Becca.
okay.
And they send a box. This thing is probably about 36 inches long and wide by about 24 something inches.
Hmm.
And they're boxes, plural, full of books, all kinds of curriculum workbooks, the whole, and it's all branded. The box has this big, beautiful sign on it. I mean, there's an investment there, and there's a TV experience, there's a online experience, there's all these different levels. The school system, which is very interesting, the Baltimore City school system has a person or persons, but I just have know of one. But there is a person that is assigned to these students. And at the end of each semester, before it's totally over, that person meets with the families and they go through all of the work that has been accomplished. So
Mm,
the people from the Abeka
hmm.
organization, they do a monitor, and then there is a representative from the Baltimore school system that comes back after Abeka has checked it to be sure that he's doing what he's doing from their standpoint. So
Right.
they can check it off, he's ready. And the grades and um, the level, high level of work, and that expectation is absolutely wonderful, and he loves it.
And
He
as the
loves it.
word you said, which is the magic word you said, is expectation. The
Yes,
expectation that I heard from the mayor and from the school superintendent is that we expected this. That
which is
someone expected
unacceptable
your children
to
are
fail.
going to fail. We
That's
expect our
outrageous.
children to fail.
That's
And yet you
outrageous.
give her a purple heart doing some sort of ceremony,
And
which
why is
didn't
she
make
still
any sense.
employed? Why is she still employed if you expected that failure? Why is she there?
I mean,
Why is
and
she
and,
not
and we can't
removed?
and we can't keep using the pandemic as an
No,
excuse of
no,
the reason
no.
that my ninth grade child, I mean child, my ninth grade child is now reading in the fourth grade.
Outrageous.
But yet we use the word we expected this. We use the
But
word
that says
and
whoever expected it, I don't care what your title is. If you expected failure, then you're the failure because you should
absolutely.
not be in position, be it the mayor, be it the governor, be it the superintendent, be it anybody that's sitting on that board for the Baltimore School Board of whatever it's called. They all need to be replaced. These children deserve more. Their families deserve more. We expect for our children that are in that school system to get an education. And they're
Absolutely.
not
I need you to give
meeting the
me I
goals and
need
the
you to give me
objectives.
I need you to pull your screen up to you for 5 seconds. I'll be right back. My computer is getting ready to go out.
Oh, okay.
5 seconds. Sorry.
I don't know what that means, but whatever he's doing, I'm going to just keep on with mine. My concern really is, and I've been saying this for weeks, and Carl Stokes and I talked about it the other day. We have to really, this is the time for the rallies. This is the time for the walkouts. This is the time to go stand out and join Michael at this rally. There needs to be letters that are sent to every official, every politician in the state of Maryland, every politician that is in the city of Baltimore, every politician that is in Annapolis needs to be literally, they need to be sitting around in a meeting and coming up with the resolution on how to replace that woman and put the educational system in the proper order for our children to learn. And we need to make certain that those teachers and that whole board at the school needs to be totally replaced, because if
Absolutely.
their job is to make certain that the superintendent and the leadership of that institution is doing what they're supposed to do, and that's educating our kids. There are teachers in there that are just so disappointed that they cannot do what they want to do because their hands are tied, or they don't have heat in the buildings for the school. This whole thing is a hot mess. And if this were in any other location, all of them would be fired.
And that's why you look at what we take. We take this, like you said, we take this. We have punked out. You
No
are a
question.
punk. If you have accepted the fact, you can talk about all of the glory days of school and all of the glory days in your neighborhood. We are the ancestors that our children are looking at now. And
Period.
so if they will say in about 30 years from now, well, what were our ancestors doing
Nothing.
when our schools were
Nothing.
falling apart? When the
Nothing.
hustle, because
Nothing.
the hustle that's going on right now is clear that there are a lot of people and a lot of companies making a lot of money.
No
A
question.
lot
And
of money.
they're making six figures and
Absolutely.
nobody's being
Not just in
educated.
salaries, in contracts. I've never known that someone told me that I couldn't get a curriculum out of a high school because the curriculum is copyrighted.
What?
Yes, you can get the understanding of the course they're going to teach. We're going to teach history from 1712 to 1950, but you can't get the methodology of the curriculum because these are private contractors who are coming
What?
in laying out the curriculum. Absolutely right.
But the kids aren't even learning from them.
Well, you can't learn. There's a rap song that came out one time, and the guy said, "I don't want to hear about no dead people."
Mm,
And so you have to be able to move things. We've already noticed that they attempted to miseducate us and did a fairly decent job when they
mm.
told us the greatness of George Washington and the greatness of these people and these white folk. We didn't say, oh, yeah, George Washington was a great president, but he had 330 slaves. We didn't ever say that. We just said
Right.
that he was the president. And
Right.
so what we have to do today is two things. We've got to blow the curriculum up. You've got to blow the curriculum up and bring it up to 21st century. You can't keep teaching school like they used to teach school with the subject matter. I have a history book here that they're using in one of the schools, and maybe 5 pages are African American involved. Of course,
What?
it's always Dr. King.
Wait a minute. What?
It's like 5 pages. Dr. King, Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass, and Toussaint Louverture. That's it.
Well,
That's your and in
but who
between
else
that,
is in there?
white folk. White folk is in there, the rest of it.
And so who owns that curriculum? Where did they get
The
that curriculum?
curriculum is owned by it's a company. I mean, the book that I'm getting is a McGraw Hill. I mean, everybody don't recognize the McGraw
Oh,
Hill
okay.
is a
All
billion
right.
dollar, zillion dollar corporation who
Yes.
has all of the literature that we buy the books. We're now buying the programs from them and all of it. But we can
But the
create
children aren't even learning from them.
because we can create our own curriculum. What is a better? I mean, you and I grew up, and regardless of what side of town we were in and state we were in, I knew that in a civics class, I knew who my city councilwoman person was,
You
my
better.
delegate, my state senator, my
You
congressman,
better.
but I also knew what was their role. So when I went to them, I didn't ask a United States senator for a job. I asked the United States senator for a bill that could create a job. But I knew that my city council person was the closest person to me.
Mm.
And so was my state senator, my state delegate, and my congressman. I mean, McQuaisi and our classmates from Morgan. You know, I worked for him when the first time I did radio on EAA as a student. I worked under Quasi. But you're not going to tell me, my friend, that you don't recognize that the school system is doo. You're not going to tell me Corey McCrae, Antonio Hayes, Mary Washington, and Jill Carter that the schools aren't doo in your districts. But no one has stood up. And that's why it's important that on April the 4th, that we get as many hundreds of people we can get to
That's
ask for
critical.
the immediate removal of
Mhm.
Sandalisa, the
Yeah.
immediate removal of the entire school board, up to the two elected people who need to step up their game too. But
Right.
what we've done, if we've accepted the dumbing down, we've accepted the dumbing down, and people don't feel like it's no big deal.
Mhm.
That's the kids. The kids are not learning.
And
Now
the
we have a new thing that we're bringing in all of these sexual identity classes. Figure out who you are. No, you figure out who you are by looking in your pants. That's it. You figure out who you are. Now,
well,
whatever.
I'm not going to get down into the personal aspect of how people want to live, but
No, no.
what I
But I
am.
think if I can, let me.
Oh,
What I'm
sure.
saying is this: I don't believe that it is the school's position to make decisions that parents and families need to make. And I believe that the school now getting involved with the sexual orientation of people is a wrong place for the school system. I think that those are mechanisms in place that can do that. And I get it. I have more than one gay person in my family. Okay, numerous. But at the end of the day, I recognize that where they found their stride and things was in the world. I don't need my grandson who's in the third grade to come home and say, "Oh, I got to pick out this book to figure out who I am." And because of the absence of parents in the lives of education of their children, because of the absence of parents in the social connection of their children, people are going to be making decisions of who your child is and what your child is, and you're not going to know it until too late. Now, I'm not going to dwell on that like you said as much, but the main thing is we have a Baltimore City public school system that is mismanaging, miseducating, and lying to the public. Because to be honest, those test scores don't mean jack to me. What means to me, what the test scores identify to me is there's no one's even trying.
So, so I'm glad that you're on here today
Thank you.
and saying all the words that need to be said. And this little country girl from South Bend, Indiana, understood in my neighborhood and when I went to Pearly School, which was the black elementary school. And then I think I was the third generation to integrate the middle school
Hmm.
and then the high school. At the end of the day, everybody in my community knew what your grades were on the east side
Yes.
of
Yes.
South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah.
And in those streets, east and west, I can tell you all the names of the streets. I can tell you who lived in every house. And I can tell you the address that they had on Chalfont Street or Pearly or on Bissell or Soren or Twickenham or Campbell or Chalfont or Corby. I can tell you. And it was understood that you better get an education. And you couldn't walk home without somebody's mama asking you about, I know y'all had a test today. How you know what test I got? I know y'all had a test today to see. And what was that grade? What was that expectation? And every mama or daddy went to the school if there was any kind of problem. We have communities where they're dealing with so many issues, multiple issues, from employment to their own education to just trying to survive. It's painful. And then you have these young people who live in these spaces where there is abuse and they have no outlet to work that through. And so now you're seeing them go through all of these experiences because they've got to fight at home. On top of that, they get to a school system that doesn't give a daggone about them. They're not learning. They've got issues, mental, physical, emotional, and then they get to the school and they know those teachers could give less than a daggone. Their grades show it, how they're being taught or not being taught. They understand that those people don't really want to be there, even though they're making 60,000, 100,000, however many, too much money to get the outcome that they get in this Baltimore City school system. I'm not going to look at any other system right now because I live in this city. And at this point in my life, at 71 years old, I am done. Sandalisa needs to be fired. The Board of Education for the city of Baltimore needs to be fired. The leadership in the city council and all of the presidents of these universities in this city need to sit down and develop the curriculum and make certain that those programs are set up so these children can win. And anybody who is not involved and committed to our children in the Baltimore City school system are not committed, they need to be removed. I don't care if you're the mayor, I don't care if you're the city council, I don't care what your title is. If you are ineffectual, if our children are not your priority, you need to be unemployed. Period.
And we have, beginning even in the days of the Kirk Smoke administration, this started weakening the community. People say, oh, well, people moved out to Baltimore County. Well, no one stays in a burning building.
Right.
No one stays in a place. And so for the people who exited out to get a better education or better housing, I ain't got no problem with that. We also got to be careful when we say communities, because what does that look like today?
Mm.
What does a community even look like today? The
Oh,
Miss
you mean all
Jackson.
the boarded up houses, the boarded up houses
Thank
on
you.
every street in this city? I just walk down the streets and I just start taking pictures of the boarded up houses. And then I put them all on that Baltimore City Facebook page.
Hmm. I mean, the thing about it is, even if let's just use a small example of what some folks and I talked about years ago about the vacant housing. If you have three trade schools in the city, you have West Side Skill Center, you have Carver, and you have Mervo. If you were to take these carpenters, these electricians, these plumbers, and all of these cement people, concrete people, and HVAC and all this and that, if you were to take a block at a time, one block, and
Mm-hmm.
make it into a laboratory where the young people would go in there and do that. Now, in the meantime, while they are building that block, their parents are in a housing program. It
Right,
teaches them how to maintain their house, pay their bills, do
right,
everything they got to do.
right.
How better would the city be?
Listen, there's a gentleman named Munir Bahar.
Yes, I know, Manir.
Okay, so you know that Munir has all these young people. I just went out there the other day, a
Hmm.
couple of days ago. And but several years ago, over in East Baltimore, Munir took the young people that he works with. They took three or four
Hmm.
houses that were vacant with
Hmm.
boarded up, and he totally restored this building.
Hmm.
And he's still working with these young people, but the building was absolutely fabulous. And
Hmm.
these kids were they were so excited. And I've been involved with him at some point.
Hmm.
This young man sees the potential in these young people. He sees the potential. He's giving them a craft that they can actually create either a business or a job.
That's right.
That's what it's all about. The bottom line is we need to educate our young people to be the best that they can be, in spite of the foolishness that's going on. And at the end of the day, I don't care what the people's names are. I don't care how much money. If you're making $385,000 a year, that's too much because you're not doing your job. And I hope you can hear what I'm saying. Sandalisa.
Well, you would think that you would hire somebody on a scale that says if you reach this point, you get a little of this. You reach this point, you get a little bit more. But we start people up here, and all they have to do is maintain the status quo. We've
They
got to
don't
be
even care.
careful with many of our institutions. If you look at the school board and you look at them individually and read their bio, you will find out that more than half of the board has a connection to Johns Hopkins University. Johns Hopkins University receives more of the investigative, different words I could find right now, but more money from the Baltimore City school system and studies than any other university in the state of Maryland.
That's a daggone shame.
Because everyone is using our children as lab
As
rats.
that's right. Well, but
They're
that's what
using them as
Hopkins
lab rats.
does. But that's
And
what
so,
Hopkins does.
right.
That's
And
your
because
MO.
we know that, then instead of controlling, with any experiments, you have to control what it's supposed to be, what is supposed to be the end result. No one has told me, and I have asked many of the so-called educators and all that's down at North Avenue, what is the role of the school system from the time my child hits the 12th
Starts.
grade? I mean, it's the kindergarten or pre-K now, from pre-K to 12.
Right.
And at what time? Because again, I do have to say that parents do have a role, and parents usually do have a role in elementary and so-called middle school, which we've asked them many, many times to eliminate. You eliminate the middle school. You make junior high schools again. There was a natural progression
Yes.
of junior high, of elementary to junior high to high
Yes.
school. I
Yes.
remember when I hit high school in the 10th grade, not the ninth grade, in the 10th grade, the first thing I wanted to do was to be like the 12th graders. I wanted to get out of there. So I knew I had to pass on, even though I was summer school boy, but I had to make sure I moved forward. What we are doing now is that we are bringing in young people. We're dealing with cell phones. We're dealing with all of this other stuff. Like you said, the way that they
Drugs.
have to
Right.
maneuver. There's no
Right.
such thing as neighborhood schools anymore, where the
Mhm.
kids would, when I went to Edgecombe Circle Elementary School, I literally walked across the street. Now, the
Yeah.
kids that are around that school, which is now called the Park Heights Academy, because the first thing that we started doing is changing the names, taking the
Mhm.
names of Black sheroes and heroes off of many of the buildings, so that
Mhm.
now these kids are going to these Excels and all of these AZTBG schools that have
Alphabet.
no
Right.
sense.
Right.
Because these schools, I mean, there is no way in the world that the Reginald Lewis School shouldn't be nothing but a business school. That's what
Mm.
the Reginald Lewis School should be, a business school. Why? Because Reginald Lewis was the man when it came to business. But now you got Reginald Lewis School getting the 1 star, which is like the lowest,
Right.
even though his wife has poured money into that school as well as the school system. There are some kids, there are some young people in Mississippi that are getting about, I think that school system, about $6,000, $7,000 a year. Just think of $6,000 or $7,000 a year versus $18,000 to $19,000 a year that our children in Baltimore City get. And and I hear my teacher friends and family members that are teacher that always talk about, well, we don't make no money. Well, go past the school's parking lot. Just drive past the school parking lot and see what cars are in the parking lot. So,
Mhm.
to suggest that teachers aren't getting money, and I don't blame teachers, and I don't blame many of the principals. I blame leadership.
So
And leadership, when a superintendent, and I'll never let her down on this. Anytime I see her, she will get to a point to run away from me, because I believe when you stand on television and you say the
mm,
child didn't die in my building, and yet you don't recognize that your school is part of the community. And that's the strength. She said it not once, but twice, from Emerson Village to Patterson High School. This child didn't die. And it wasn't children on children at Patterson High School, because this was a 23-year-old adult
that's
that killed this boy.
outrageous. It's
So
outrageous.
we need to immediately remove Sandalisa from the superintendent rule, and especially, and then bring in an emergency group of people like the
To take
Army
over.
does when it brings in the board of engineers to come
Yes.
in and to build this bridge back to get these
Yes.
kids back on level. And one thing we have to do, we have to recruit Black men to come into these schools to teach.
Hmm.
I don't
So here's
understand what's going
so
on with
here's a question for you. Here's a
this.
question for you. Let's look at from today. What's the date today?
The
It's
21st of
the
March.
21st of March. From the 21st of March to the 21st of April, what should the city of Baltimore, the parents, the leadership, the citizens should be doing in 30 days to affect change with the superintendent and the school system?
Plot, planning, organizing, and mobilizing. They got to get into each school needs a bum rush, appearance to come into school and demand in each individual school what they expect from the school system. If we sit back and let the Easter holidays and the stuff go on by us, and like you said, in that 30-day period, and do nothing. But right now, if we bum rush every school, every principal, these schools do not belong to the principals.
That's
They
exactly right. They
belong
need to
to
have
the
an
parents.
assessment tool. An
Right.
assessment tool needs to be created when
Yes.
you go in there. You need to have something that has been designed
That's right.
for them to be able to follow and for us to be able, with a committee of people, to take
Absolutely.
over. Now, that's going to also include the mayor and the governor, in because it's like a martial law should
It
occur.
is. Our kids are failing. I mean, we are sitting here debating, and I love and I like the new governor, but you're debating about giving children an extra couple of $1,000s to go to a private school when they just told you that our public schools are at the bottom of the toilet. So you're
Period.
in here debating. Now, I watched the way that this is being politically handled, and I think it's going to be defeated, and they're going to put the money back in. Why? Because some of the investigation that we've done is that we recognize that a lot of our white children in
Yes.
Baltimore City, more of our white children in Baltimore City, are using this money to go to private school and these secular schools, these schools, than Black
You
children are.
better believe it. You better
And
believe
so,
it.
especially in the Orthodox Jewish community, it's hundreds, if not thousands. So, what we need to do from that period that you said, which is a great window that you said, is that we have to go and converge into these schools and make these principals give me a syllabus and say at the end of the day, end of the year, this is where my children should be. Now, we know it's not going to happen for June, but we're saying starting in September of 2023, what's
It
going to
should be
happen
on.
every month and what's the gauge. And
It
then the
should be on.
principals has got to get off of some of their lazy butts and go out into the community and maybe
Right.
go to the local pastor, go to the local stores, go to the local barber shops and say, I'm Principal Marsha, I'm Principal Michael, what can I do to educate your children? But half of the times at 3:30 or 4 o'clock, like I said, these $1 million institutions that we
Mhm.
have been built
Yes.
by the Stadium Authority, which means definitely
That's a
Black
whole nother
contractors didn't have a
conversation.
lot of room with that. But here we have state legislators that are going to come back to you from Annapolis, and they're
Mhm.
going to say, "This is what I've done. Vote for me, and I'll set you free." Here come
And
the city
and
election.
and that's not going to be the norm anymore. And we need to change that. We got 2 minutes.
Yes.
2 minutes. Close it out for us, Michael.
We've got to plot, plan, organize, and mobilize. We've got to be able to put our demands on the table at the Baltimore City public school system. We've got to ask for the removal of Sandalisa, who is the CEO, and we need a school superintendent. We need all of that to happen within a year, or everybody that's going to be knocking on your door asking for your vote, you should let them know that I'm not going to vote from you unless you sign this declaration that says that she should remove.
Okay, we got 1 minute. What
Yes.
I would propose to you is before we do the rally, we get the group together and create a committee that's going to be leading this charge. And let's talk about that offline. We got 1 more minute. We're getting ready to close. But I think we need to start bringing all the people together that we know that are in this thing with us to sit down and develop a strategy together. Are you
And that's
in?
what part of our mobilizing and organizing. We just had a meeting last Saturday
All
with
right.
people that's going to be part of it. Join us on April the 4th at the school system at 5 p.m. on April the 4th, the 55th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King.
Yes. Whew. Thank you, Michael Eugene Johnson.
Thank you.
And thank you, audience, for taking the time to listen to this. But we also need you to understand that this is a call to action. And we hope that you will see us on what date, Michael?
On April the 4th at 5 p.m. at the Baltimore School Building at North Avenue.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Please take it and send it out so that other people can hear the truth. All right. I'm
Thank you
Marsha
much.
Reeves, and I approve all of this. Thanks,
Way to go.
Donnie, for letting us sit
Thank
in
you.
for you, brother.
Thank you,
All right.
Donnie. All
Take
righty.
care. Bye bye.